projects. So it's a pretty chunky projects list. What I'd say is that it's in order for me to be able to focus on what I think the highest priority projects are, if you will, what I tend to do from time to time is just sort of go through my projects list, maybe as part of my review, and just say, okay, that's all fine, but of those 70, the 5 that I really want to be focusing my time and energy on are these 5. Now, that said, there's one other thing I would say, which is also very important. It's a really good idea to make sure that any tasks that are truly time critical, that you get those in a place where you'll see them. So whether it's, for example, I use Outlook 2007, so you can have tasks with due dates assigned to them show up on the day when they're due. That's important. Or I also have a paper tick file or bring forward file, which I use, that will make sure that as I look at that every day, I will pull out anything that's really time critical on that day. So one of the things that I think is important to free up your brain from worrying about prioritization so much is make sure if something is due on a particular day, you absolutely have a marker that says this is due today. Because a lot of times I think people's priority choices, they get stressed about what they're spending time on because they haven't registered that something today, and this is something to really focus on. So it's a long-winded way of saying it's a mixture of those 3 things.
Okay, thank you. Got a new question from Johan Hall. Probably is going to be for you, Frode. Do you see any differences in applying GTD in a Norwegian work culture rather than in a more task-oriented US work culture?
Oh, wow. Hard for me to say because I've been mostly gone for 19 years. I don't think so, just because culture from one organization to another really varies more than cultural between countries. So you'll find other organizations in Europe that have organizational cultures that feel very American, and you'll find organizations in the U.S. that have a very Scandinavian feeling, sort of more relaxed, non-confrontational type of work culture. Sony Electronics will be an example. Aerospace defense companies will be an example. So I don't think there would be a huge difference. And keep in mind that the fundamental truths here, the fundamental observations about how the human mind works, are independent of what culture you're in. Your brain only has so much memory capacity, focusing capacity. Your brain has the same kind of limitations whether you are Polish or Swedish or Norwegian or American, which there's no such thing as an American anyway genetically. So that's my answer, no.
Okay. We have a question for Todd. How many hours a week do you use on managing GTD?
I'm sorry, how many hours do I use managing GTD?
How many hours a week do you use on managing GTD?
How many hours a week do I use on managing GTD? I'm sorry, I need to clarify that. Is that how many hours a week do I use GTD as a manager, or do I use it
as a
managing
tool?
itself?
As a tool? Can you hear me now? Hello? Oops.
As a tool?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a really good question. I think that over time, it seems like it becomes less and less, and I suppose that's because I'm getting better at, getting better at, as things come into my world, making very quick decisions about them and then getting them into my system. So I would guess on any given day, I'm probably looking at I'm certainly doing a review of my email inbox, probably once every hour or every 2 hours, depending. I'm checking my task list twice a day to see if there's something I need to be focused on. I'm looking at my calendar 2 or 3 times a day. And then in terms of processing, that's probably another hour a day. I hear it's a lot. People say set aside an hour to do processing every day. That's about right in my experience. Processing, again, is, for those of you who are new to GTD, taking what's come into your world, whether it's an email or a piece of paper, whatever it is, and making decisions about what it is and what it means to you, and getting it out to your system. That thinking takes me about an hour a day.
Okay, thank you, Todd. Question from Tom Gill. Does GTD really result in more free time to be creative or with family, or just more productive? Just to be more productive?
Well, you have to look at what you mean by being productive. I guess it's your ability to get the things done that you want to get done. If that happens to be a startup, that's what you focus on. If it happens to be reconnecting with your family, which has been part of my priorities in the last year, I have 2 adult sisters I don't see enough of, then that's work too. Work is whatever you want to do that you haven't gotten done yet. So I don't really draw a big line between family stuff and business stuff, and it's all things I want to accomplish, all outcomes that I want to achieve. So sure, it's just a matter of you deciding for yourself what your desired vision is, purpose, long-term roadmap, shorter-term goals and responsibilities are, and then just working towards that, working to make sure that your project lists and your current active projects move you in that direction, and then you'll get there. It's basically that simple.
Okay, thank you. Still have 15 minutes left of Q&A. We'll take another couple of questions at least. There's a tricky one for you, Todd. Can you hear me?
Yes.
That's not the question. It was a trick question. How to manage a large to-do activity such as writing a business plan using GTD, I guess is the question.
How to write a business plan using GTD, a large activity.
Yeah.
I think Freddie will have a view on this as well. My take on that is, and I have used GTD as a structure to do all kinds of larger documents, is what you need to do is come up with a bit of, do some hierarchical thinking about what the business plan is all about and how the various elements interrelate. So what I mean by that is, in business plans that I've done in the past, one of the sections would be a competitive review. So who are competitors? How are they servicing the market? How are they pricing? All of those kinds of things go into the competitive review section of a business plan. Now, what I would have is, if generate business plan is one of your projects, then I'd have a sub-project, which would be complete competitive review, okay, which would be about creating that piece of the business plan. And then what you do is just work down from there till you get to an action, right? So if my sub-project is create the competitive review, as I'm working down, at some point I might actually get to the point where my next action would be browse the web for company XYZ, who I know is a competitor of mine, and find out something about their pricing or their products. So it's a really good point, a really interesting question, and I think something that I am constantly thinking about is, how do I best arrange my projects and sub-projects in such a way that I make sure that I'm focusing energy and attention appropriately.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, please do.
Well, I think maybe one of the most underappreciated, most powerful aspects of GTD is the natural planning method, which is described in David's first book as well as his last book. And it's basically a way for you to organize your thoughts about what the purpose of a project is and what the different aspects are of that project. Your vision of success and what all the different moving parts are. You're brainstorming about what you could do and then sorting that out into a set of sub-projects that make sense. And sometimes that's easier because you've done it before, so you kind of have a recipe if you've done 4 or 5 business plans. Well, it's another one and it's not that different, so I'll just reuse my outline, my templates from before. And other times it's a completely brand new thing, and so you spend a fair amount of time just trying to figure out what the heck you're doing. And in that case, that in itself can be a sub-project to just go research a bunch of stuff to figure out if this type of a business is even possibly viable. And one of my ventures sort of fits into that category where I don't even know if I know enough to get started on writing a business